heard we had one, so I wanted to see it.
I do what I can there, but I'm not officially on it. I've been here a time or two. Tammy says the gear ain't bringing enough for me. Well, not. Not that. I can say cheese.
Depends on how much money you got.
Shut up. He said you might as well be on. I said Tammy says the gear ain't bringing enough for me. There's some of the limestones over here. Is that mine?
I'm getting ready for beauty pageants this week.
Are you?
Yeah, I got one.
Is this still in there for?
5:30.
Everybody had a chance to sign in?
One that had updated our ordinance too. Seen the displacement. Somewhere. started, don't it? Meeting come to order. Everybody get a chance to have received the minutes from last previous meeting. Everybody okay? Make a motion to approve it. All right.
Second.
Okay. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All righty. Bill, start off or you'll be?
Well, when David and I talked recently, there were some questions that some people were wanting to field after we did or during the fact that we had done our first vote on the reading of the ordinance. Some people had some questions they thought that they wanted to have answered, so we thought we'd call a meeting tonight, see if we could answer some of the questions that some people might have. And so we've asked Matt Beatty for help on this in terms of, from a dollar standpoint, what it would look like, and from an organizational chart standpoint, what it would look like. We also asked the gentleman from the state to come up and give us an organizational chart, how it might look like if you combine them, and some of the advantages of doing it and so forth. So I've talked to Matt, and Matt says he's come up with some things that for us to consider, and some of the different options that he has outlined. Some of those things we can listen to now, and some of those things we can consider at a time in which you have budget and finance, which usually comes up in the next couple of months. That's once a year where everybody brings a budget before the committee, budget and finance committee, and moves on to the full body, and then they vote on things like that. But I think he's got some interesting news on the different options. And I also wanted to talk about the organizational chart that was shown at our last commission meeting. That was, that Mr. Cross had shown up. So, Matt, I don't know where we go with it, but maybe we'll just let you explain a couple of things that you've come up with, and then we can field any questions that some people might have.
Okay. I think when it comes down to the organizational chart, like we said, most of this pretty much all of it currently exists outside of the deputy chief fire position for the most part, for the way it stands today, minus the 3rd EMS unit. So if you looked at option 1, which I think is probably the most feasible option to look at, when it comes down to, if you decide not to, if the county court decides not to fund the deputy chief of the fire division, then we're looking at right around a $9,000 increase in salaries that would go to the EMS personnel that would do both EMS and suppression. I think that's probably the option, or the biggest concern that's been asked of me is what's it going to cost. So if you decide not to fund that position, which it's completely up to you all. All the other full-time positions already currently exist, so there's no addition of personnel or dramatic increases in having to fund additional personnel. I think
So on the organizational chart, the question I have is it was put up on the screen by Mr. Cross during the last commissioners meeting, but it didn't have any names attached to it. So someone might look at that and go, that's a whole lot of new additional people that you might have to fill spots for. So that's a question that I have heard people say, well, how many people would fill in those places on that chart? So,
like the deputy chief of emergency medical and deputy chief of emergency management are currently filled by Mark Harmon on a part-time position. The battalion chief for A shift is Daniel Summers. Dean Hall is the B shift, and J.D. Harris fills in the C shift position. Those positions currently exist. And the EMS unit 1 and 2, which currently exist, are staffed by 2 people each shift or 3 shifts. So there's 6 people on each one for each shift. Not total, just for each 3 shifts. There's 2 persons per EMS unit. So there's 4 daily, and then for 3 shifts, 12 total. And then me over the emergency management and emergency medical division. So those positions are all currently in place.
right there.
Correct. And for the most part, I think the fire side has their own structural hierarchy that they have in place. I for the most part, to fill in positions that Mr. Cross laid out, I think, for the most part.
So if you went with option 1, then how does that look on the day-to-day operations, say at the fire station, if we merge this together?
I think you would move your administrative staff down to the fire hall, and, one EMS unit that's got the suppression cross-trained personnel would be down there too, to respond in both capacities. I mean, it's obviously not gonna be the full-time staffing, because they'll have to run EMS calls also, but you'll have, I mean, if you look at our call volume overall, it still gives you, our unit utilization time is still, we staff it pretty regularly for the most part.
So option one would be pretty much like it is now.
Correct, you just combine
You
departments.
not have a third unit,
Right,
you just have it like it is now.
right. And third unit, I mean, if that was ever explored, you're probably looking at about $140,000 annually for staff, 3 additional EMTs. That's kind of where we're at on that. I mean, you have, and if y'all ever wanted to explore the SAFER grant, that's obviously an option to fund additional fire positions if you're interested in the third ambulance, but that's,
I talked to Steve Cross briefly this morning, as he was headed to East Tennessee. He said the SAFER grants, we need to go ahead and apply for it now. You can apply for a variety of things. You can apply for personnel, you can apply for equipment, you can apply for, all types of different things that are in the needs of firefighting industry. But the
yeah, the
22nd
SAFER is part of the Assistance to Firefighters grant, and they fund a tremendous amount of different options that you have. I mean, from turnout gear to apparatus to equipment.
He said March the 22nd was the deadline. We had to have a Downs number, is that right? Duns number. Mayor, we have a Duns number.
Yes, sir.
He also said you could probably go online and do the rest of it. It wasn't very difficult to fill out.
Yeah, the application process is
He said
online.
you fill it out and you go with it and then you'll get your response. And of course, as this thing plays out, we put this together, it's not gonna be fully implemented through July the 1st anyway.
And I couldn't tell you what the turnaround time on approval is. It's usually, I mean, just like any other grants we apply for, it's fairly
If
lengthy.
you're thinking $140,000 for option number 2, then we could also take time at budget and finance hearings where all the departments come before budget and finance committee first, and then it goes before the full court when we do our budget once a year. Those are the times in which you could actually decide whether you wanted to ramp up the service and do more than adding additional personnel, and then how much of that maybe the SAFER grant might tell you by that time how much is coming. Don't really know, you might not get anything.
Yeah.
But if it's $140,000, a good estimate wise, then, I guess one of the questions we might ask in budget and finance is, well, how much of that could be funded through the existing services that we have? Of course, that's just something you look at later.
Sure.
Last year, wasn't 100% of the SAFER grants that were initiated were given their money?
I know of the departments around here that applied did get them, so nationwide, I couldn't say, I'm not that familiar with. I mean, there's a list on there of approved agencies, but
Have we applied for it before?
not that I'm aware of.
Why haven't we?
I guess they've never explored adding additional personnel that the county wasn't willing to fund.
Equipment.
You could go to equipment, you could go to a lot of different.
Just wonder why in the past it hasn't been used if it's been out there.
Yeah, our fire truck we're purchasing would have been nice. He said you could purchase fire trucks in that time frame, you can ask for it. Yes, ma'am.
Don't you have to have a combined department to be eligible for that grant?
No.
You don't have to,
He said do the part.
so EMS could apply for it as well and they haven't either.
It's more of a fireman thing, it's not an EMS thing, it's more of a fireman thing, that's what it's saying.
I thought it was salaries and fires, something.
Personnel would-
Salaries is one thing that they fund for 2 years, and that's benefits and everything included, but after the 2 years, you have to make a decision on if you're gonna continue to fund it or not by
Right.
the county.
Then it comes from the taxpayer, unless you get another one, but I doubt, sometimes you won't get another one.
And I have a question about the fund balance, like the EMS, it's my understanding you get a certain amount of taxpayer dollars every year.
Mhm.
And then you build revenue, for
Right.
your calls and stuff. So, do you get the same amount from the taxpayers every year, even though your balance is?
No, it's adjusted.
It's adjusted,
every-
so you
every
give money
budget
back to the county?
Correct,
or-
we lowered our tax that we collected, I think, over the last couple of years offset.
Okay,
I think it started out there like 60%, I think we're down to closer to 50% of operating costs now.
okay. So that does factor in,
Yes,
taxpayers
absolutely.
aren't putting the same amount in every year.
Right.
Okay.
I've got the figures from actual, I'm looking at the budget from last year right now, actual year 2016, 2017, the taxes, that moment in time, supplemented $542,638. And total charges for current services, was patient charges, or I guess we collected revenues of $444,547. And then the estimated 17-18 was 479, so those charges are going up. Then we looked like a sandbag a little bit. 18-19 went to 470, so what are we at in terms of collection of charges right now? You have any idea?
It's a little over, I think our fund balance is sitting a little over 600,000, 660-ish.
Yeah.
Our revenues are about 100,000 ahead of what they were this time last year.
That's where I'm going with that. So if you put in there 470, you're probably at 90,000 or somewhere in that neighborhood. You're gonna be way above that figure, which goes back to the fund balance itself. Yeah. I remember the days in which we were just trying to find to see if we could come up with enough money to even have an
We were
ambulance.
backing trucks up to the sinkhole and dumping money into it.
It was bad.
That was a long time ago.
So we're in a different day now.
Well, we're done better since then. We learned our mistakes.
Yeah, I mean, our call
Done
volume
well.
increased over the last 5 years. You know, it's doubled what it was. I think when I started, it was less than 1,000 a year, or 2,000 a year now, so it's continued to go up, and the prison obviously has been a good source of revenue for us too, so we're maintaining pretty frequent call volume up there, so.
How long have we been, go ahead.
Well, explain to me, how the fund balance is kept, like, say, with other offices, the money goes back to 141.
That would be an answer y'all would provide, that was done before I ever came here.
Those are broken down. There's 141, actually, the ambulance service used to be in the 141. He never really knew until we broke it off a couple of years back. Some of the funding that, so some of the departments, all the different departments have different balances.
Yeah.
So, you know, you can take a look at this budget and have it all broken down, the revenues, expenditures. What goes back in the 101 fund, sometimes there's like overages, like the sheriff has his money. But then if he, at the end of the year, has money to turn back in, he didn't spend all of it, then it goes back into the 101.
Yeah. So why is that ambulance service not the same way? It was just set up different in the beginning, it was just set up a different way than the sheriff's department. So if they have surplus, their money doesn't go back, it stays.
As far as I know, the sheriff don't have to, but he does. He don't have to, but he usually gives back a certain amount of money.
It was
If he
my
has,
understanding.
Huh?
It was my understanding that they set it up that way, at least that was explained to me, was so they could track the revenues and stuff more easily inside the ambulance service, since they were, I guess it's been explained to me. Can't
Yeah,
remember.
we couldn't,
6 or 7
we had trouble figuring out where the money went and stuff, so we made it its own entity, and we give them, what was it, 350,000?
350, what was it, Mark?
And,
Something like that.
for them to run, and then as time went, Mr. Bailey's done an outstanding job of running the department, and it's making money now.
Well, all
And then
that
that
is
got,
prison.
I believe we paid that back, I think, I'm pretty sure
I
we
think
did.
so, I think we pulled 50 grand or so out of it last year.
Yeah,
Paid it all.
So on your option, going back to your option 1 for just a second, $9,000 is what it looks like it would cost. Do you have enough money in the fund in your own ambulance area?
sure.
To cover that cost?
That's easy.
Figured you would.
At least now.
About
We
$9,000.
remounted a couple of trucks, we spent a few $100,000 over the last few years just on equipment that hasn't really damaged our income at all.
Any questions? Anybody?
So in option 2, how many additional members would you be looking to staff?
3.
It's my understanding that some of the people that are here currently living in the county would like to go to the school. Maybe they're a firefighter now and they would be interested in one of those spots. What are your thoughts on trying to hire people that are already in the county that send them to school? How would that look?
I think it would be the best option. I mean, it gives you people inside the county that live here that'll be able to work here too. And I think we'd revisit that resolution we made to send EMTs to paramedic school and see if we could incorporate, current volunteers into going to EMT school. And it's so reasonably priced to do EMT school, and it's not very much, considerably less than
We had
paramedic
a
school.
young lady that done the paramedic thing, and she done it for a little while, and then she decided she didn't wanna do it anymore. But she
So far, she's been one person that's.
paid back,
Well, you're investing in your community.
yeah,
Yeah, and she didn't live here, so maybe.
yeah. But anyway, we sent her to school, and she got a couple years' work out of it. Yes, ma'am. Yes, sir.
Right now, the way we're set up, the current grants we can apply for now, by consolidation, does that open the door for more grants, other grants that we can't apply for now because we're not consolidated?
I think you could probably still apply for them. I think if you incorporate in a higher increased call volume that you can roll in with the ambulance service, it makes it more attractive. Cause if you show need,
Right.
certainly makes you stand out a little bit more.
I thought Mr. Cross had mentioned, that'd be a good question for him, cause I remember him talking about that it opened up more doors during the consolidation for more types of.
Which can help offset the $140,000 salary increase if we went to option 2.
At least, yeah.
That's correct.
I mean,
If you do on personnel, at least have 2 years, then you'd have to decide in if you wanna keep them or what you're
My
gonna do.
point is there's $140,000 if option 2 goes, but because it opens more doors for grants, that can be offset by getting money in.
I think the consolidation itself, even if you went with option one, would be more attractive.
The nice thing is we might know, and I don't know the answer to this, but if we apply for the grant before the 22nd on the safer, which we should do that.
That's what I was
Then we still have time to July the 1st, maybe we have an answer by then, maybe you can always go from option one to option 2 at any time that you chose to. I mean, that's built into the system. That's no different than any department saying, like Ray saying, I need more deputies, or I need more cars, or I need more this, or I need more that, that's not unusual.
Option 1 would not be very much change right now, would it? Just be about like it is right now.
But you wouldn't have a deputy fire chief. So if
You
you're saying-
would, that would just be a volunteer position. Yeah, just be unpaid.
Yes, ma'am.
What are the advantages and the disadvantages of staying like it is versus going to this option one versus option two?
It just increases cross-trained personnel, people can do more things, you're trained together, you're all under one leadership. A lot of departments do everything, like volunteer departments that run EMS and fire. I mean, some of them are career, some are volunteer, but they're all over the United States that way. It's just a consolidated, I mean, our government's consolidated already. We consolidated police and sheriff's department, we consolidated a lot of other agencies that have a consolidated emergency services side.
One of the bigger advantages, I think we can answer that is when you, even if you went to the option 1, which is, he's already mentioned that you could cover that, the internal cost of the department itself. Now, option number 1, you now have people that are down there at the fire hall for more quick response time when they have a phone call from them. I mean, that's one of the biggest things. Yeah, the people within a 5-mile radius will probably get a better ISO rating down the road as we combine and start making things better. So if you live within the first so many miles, your homeowner's insurance may go down. To me, that's not the biggest plus. It's not. It's your response time where somebody has to drive to the fire hall to get in the vehicle to then head to the, versus people already being down there is one of the things I think is one of the most telling aspects of trying to put them together. And the fact, not trying to downplay your fact at all, when you put them together, now all of a sudden you're training as one unit. You're not training as different teams.
So if the fire department has something they traditionally do and they wanna keep doing on their own, would they still be able to do that?
Absolutely.
Or would they have to incorporate all departments to do what they normally do on their own? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Can you be more specific?
I don't know, maybe some training things they do that is specific to them. Would they be able to continue doing those kind of things on their own? Or would they have to do it as a group?
We would do it as a group and we'd all be on the same team.
Okay. I have one big, I'm sorry.
No,
Go
go
ahead.
ahead.
We actually, spoke to, through Facebook, both of the commissioners for my district. They don't have a clue what's going on. Not a clue. They did not know how to explain to us anything. Their comment was, contact Bill Ferguson. as serious as a heart attack. And they're voting on this,
Who are your commissioners?
Burton and Gully.
And, in fairness, Mr. Gully.
Both of them said the same thing.
Burton's well informed.
Oh, yeah.
He told us to go to him.
Miss Gully is too.
I think Mr. Gully, Burton's well informed, I don't think that.
Yes, ma'am.
Get it right.
The ISO rating, it's my understanding, I called my insurance carrier and I said ISO rating. It's my understanding that that your rating is in relation to how close you are to the fire department or how close you are to a fire hydrant. It doesn't matter if you have a full-time fire department or a volunteer fire department. That doesn't affect your ISO rating at all. It's all about the distance you are from the fire department or from the water source. Is that not correct?
That's not correct.
So
That is correct to a point, but no, having a full-time fire department or versus a volunteer fire department does make a difference
It does.
And-
in how the insurance
And
company.
what
does
insurance company, because I've called 3 or 4,
Yes.
3, and they've told me no. So if you could tell me where you're getting the information from,
Well,
that would
number
help.
one, I have State Farm, and, you know, I have spoken to
So
my
State Farm does matter, it does matter.
But it stands to reason that it would make a difference. I mean, it just stands to reason because of the fact that you would have somebody sitting there to run that engine. What we have right now is these guys are doing the best that they can do. But let's just be realistic. If that engine can get out of that hall 5 minutes sooner than what our present people are able to get it out of the hall, that's 5 more minutes you put out there to save somebody's life. It's not, nobody's trying to cut out anybody or throw anybody out. We're trying to make it better, trying to up the service and make it a better service.
Every call that I have received regarding your question, the insurance company has only asked, how far is this home
That's
from
true.
the station?
That is
They
true.
have not asked any other information, what your configuration, what your staffing, how many stations you have. They wanna know how far that house is
Maybe not
from the
all of
station.
it.
It's not.
Is that for response time, Mark?
Is that
Is that for
I mean,
response time?
That's
or-
is
period.
that why we're doing it?
They wanna know how
Just for
far
insurance?
this home is from the closest fire station. That's the only question they
I'll call
ask me.
myself.
I'm in zone 10, so I can care less one way or the other. They're gonna do it, darn it. It might burn it anyways.
I just want the facts.
But
That's
The
right.
ISO rating to me, like I said before, was not the most important feature of this to begin with.
Well, we just want the
Now,
facts.
Right, and that's what they
well,
control.
well, my information from my insurance agent said it did matter, but, you know, I believe it.
Chris,
You mentioned the response time, and that was something that came up during the county court meeting. I wonder if Mr. Beeler could speak to the response time, how quickly does the truck go out currently, and what?
Our average response time we summarized all this for 2018. And we were a little over 8 minutes total average for all of our responses, whether they be all types of calls, false calls, the long ones from the station, the short ones. So we summarized and averaged all of our calls throughout that year. And that number is a fairly consistent number from one year to the next. We're gonna run 8.5 minutes from the time the page out until the first unit is on scene. And that's the way we do call time. We look on the incident report, we determine by notation when it is paged, and then we look at the time that the first engine unit arrives on scene. Not necessarily the first personnel, because sometimes I might be the first personnel on scene, but I'm not equipped to fight a fire in my own truck. So we look at when the first engine arrives on scene.
yes, ma'am.
I actually got more information from 3 EMSs over at, Early Bird one morning. They happened to be there, and I asked if they minded if I talked to them. And there was another gentleman that was at the commission meeting from Wilson County, now here in Trousdale County. What's his name? I can't remember his name. And we talked for probably half an hour. And their explanation of what that first team would be that leaves the firehouse is not with an engine. It's with an EMS group that goes on, that has some equipment on their truck. But you still gotta wait for somebody to get to the fire hall to get the
No,
engine.
that's not accurate what they
Well,
told me.
that's how they explained it.
It would take an engine and an ambulance at the same time. There's 2 people.
So the 2 people, one's gonna drive the ambulance and one's gonna drive the fire engine?
Correct.
They don't know that.
Well, I wanna speak to this for just a second, because I have been researching this on my own, and I wanna know, question to you, Mr. Brady. If we do this kind of combination, and you have people that are down there, even in option 1, from the time that the call is paged out, to the time that a truck, whether it be a brush truck or a fire engine, leaves that station, what do you think would be a acceptable time to get those out the door?
I think our average at EMS was a minute
You
and
emailed it
15
today.
seconds. I think. A minute and 15.
That was the shoot time, which I was confused, cause Mr. Fuller kept saying about shoot time. The fire department doesn't use shoot time, but I think EMS does.
That's the way our report writer breaks it down.
Right.
It's response time, then it has that other time. That's just how our program.
Yeah, okay, in your email today, it said our average response time for February was 7 minutes, 15 seconds. And then I think, what was Mr. Beaver, the fire department, their response time was 8 minutes. So I don't see, we're arguing over a minute.
Right.
No, we're not arguing over a minute.
I mean, I
Not
don't
at all,
understand.
because, okay, let me give you some intel here.
Okay.
The people that drive their fire trucks today don't drive any faster than what they can. They drive as fast to the fire as they can get. If we combine services, the people that would be driving the fire truck now might be the same people, but if it's other people, they can't drive any faster than what we've got right now. That's a pure fact, so we can't really control that element. But what we can control
They're supposed to follow it.
is how fast you can get that truck out of the station. So when you start talking about 8 minutes versus 7 minutes, you're talking about 2 dynamics. They're going to fires. These are ambulance calls. These are totally different types. It's like an apple and an orange. But I have pulled in the last 13 months actual responses from the sheriff's department, who's our dispatch system. And I have some intel for you. When the fire was paged out to when the first vehicle, whether it be a brush truck or a fire truck, left the station. 5 minutes, 6 minutes, 5 minutes, which is not terrible. 5 minutes, 5 minutes, 7 minutes, 7 minutes.
It is if you're on fire.
It is if you're on fire. 2 minutes, 8 minutes, 9 minutes, 5 minutes,
That's right, you're inside the house.
4 minutes,
So we're gonna
11 minutes,
So we're comparing 5 and 4 minutes to a minute and 15 seconds maybe.
5 minutes, 12 minutes.
This could be a big difference.
Guy's tractor was on fire in a barn back on April the 27th of this past year. The fire was paged out, and it was early in the morning too, 3:47 in the morning, 3:59 the first truck left out. 12 minutes, 6 minutes. If you say you can get there within 2 minutes, I'm just pulling things from the dispatch report. I'm just pulling that from the sheriff's, and the different dispatchers report it differently. But that's what I'm looking at right now, and that's not a complete report. I'm just working on it, so it's kind of in a rough form.
Mr. Buckler.
Now, Mr. Ferguson pointed out Mr. Van Thompson's barn. It was a lengthy response, and I'd like to point out to the committee here that the fog was so thick that night, we literally couldn't drive with headlights on. So there are extenuating circumstances to some of these
Which
things.
is why it probably took 11 minutes rather
It
than maybe
was,
5 or 6. or
it was
7.
ridiculous. It was raining. It was muddy.
To even get to the station,
It was.
taking any more time because it was
I
falling.
mean, I understand where you're going with this, but I mean, getting there was crazy.
You know, listen, it depends if the person that comes, gets there first, he runs in the building, he puts his bunker gear on and then gets in the truck and goes, or or if he waits till he gets to the scene and puts his bunker gear on. Everybody does it different. I just think if we can do this, leave it at option one, do this all together, that somewhere down this road, things are gonna get better for everybody. It'll take time, it'll take time for people get better trained, the whole thing. It'll just take a little time. We ain't gonna be able to rush into this and be gung-ho and do all this stuff. It's just gonna take time. So, in option one, I believe that'd be a good place to start. You start working on equipment, you start working on training, and you do it a little at a time, and you get your people in position to run it. That'd be between the mayor and whoever, to hire who he's gonna be in charge of all this, who's gonna be, then who they gonna have as deputy fire chief, who's gonna be the deputy EMA, and who's gonna be the deputy EMS person. Then you move on down, get your job descriptions and get everything. It's gonna take time. But in the long run, it'll be good for the whole county over time. Yes, sir, Mr. Cole.
Cost that you're talking about, Matt, I'm assuming is mostly personnel.
Yes,
You're keeping an ambulance unit there round the clock,
yes.
sleeping quarters, what are you doing for that?
Well, we've explored a couple options. I mean, I'm not super familiar with the fire hall, but I think you would just have to, and I think somebody threw this idea out to me earlier, was use like a futon type scenario in the training room where you could use it as a couch during daytime hours, and when it was sleeping time, they would just fold them out as a bed. And kitchen part and shower part, obviously, it's not there, but those just aren't absolute necessities. If they need a shower, they can always run up to the EMS building. The majority of the time, they only a couple of shifts even cook, so it's certainly not a deal breaker to have it immediately. It's something you can look at in the long-term picture.
But those are costs that at some point will need to be factored into this.
Potentially, yes.
They were cut out years ago.
It was nice when we had that disaster.
They should have been left in, they were cut out.
Are there codes that are gonna have to be followed for that to be, you know, like what you're saying? For it to be the official fire hall, are there gonna have to be codes that will include having to build on and stuff like that?
That was somewhere down the road. This would bear where a grant would come in, but somewhere you could get the money.
What do you think, where they would put
It was, the building was left that you could add on to it. The building was left, when these were cut out years ago, those things were cut out. But they left space on the right side of the building that can be, all that can be added back. Yes, it would cost some money, but somewhere along the way you find a grant or something to help out. I don't think no taxes would have to be raised for it, but somewhere along the way, it could be fixed back up.
You're not talking about reoccurring expenditures, or you're usually talking about one-time expenditures. You know, when the disaster relief fund was granted to us, we had, if my memory serves me correct, and Dwight Jewell confirmed what I said recently, those things were in the original plans.
Yeah,
They were later taken out. But
They were taken out due to the expense. The
Would
grant
they
wouldn't cover it.
the federal government was paying for a certain
That
percentage.
wouldn't cover it.
It wasn't? I just knew they were cut out.
The showers today is pretty important. We talked about that, about when you go to a fire and you get stuff on you, and
Yeah, there's the big cancer prevention stuff that's going on is, they don't even want you to bring your turnout into the building anymore. It's decoming at the scene pretty much, slowly evolving.
The fact of the matter is that smoke inhalation is the number one cause of death, and it only takes 2 to 10 minutes for you to pass out and die from smoke inhalation. That's 50 to 80% of the fire deaths. We had 141 fire deaths in Tennessee last year. We are 2 times more likely than other states in the nation to die from fire deaths. If we can shave that time to 1 to 2 minutes and save lives, and it only costs $9,000, why would we not do that? The increase in deaths is by age. Less than 14 years old, particularly 5-year-olds, and over 65. Now, I personally think my 13-year-old is worth $9,000. You know, I believe your 9-year-olds, or 13-year-olds are worth $9,000. I'll write you a check for $9,000 because I feel like your child is worth that. I feel like my child is worth that. I mean, why are we quibbling over $9,000? You know, I mean, it's there. I mean, all I've heard is the cost. No one else can tell me any other reason why it's not good to combine this. I've not had a single person in my district call me and tell me that they didn't want it to combine. When I ran as a commissioner, I said this is what I wanted to do. And I was still elected. So I take that as my district wanted that, because no one from my district has ever told me they didn't want it. So I don't see what the big disagreement is about. If someone can tell me other than cost, I would be more than happy to listen.
So, kind of piggybacking off of that, let's say we can't afford to upgrade the fire hall. And EMS is down there from 8 in the morning till 5 in the afternoon, and they go back to the EMS building and go to sleep. I don't know why they would, but say that's the reason. Okay? So, it's still better from 8 to 5. Nobody has one single reason why the combination is negative. Not one person. So if we have a bunch of small things that make it better, why would you not combine? I'm extremely confused. This response time thing, these guys are at work and their pager goes off and they go to the station and for $30 can possibly put their life in danger to volunteer for this county. Okay? $30 to go on a house fire. They do the best they can with the training they are given. Same with rescue and same with EMS. Why are we discussing anything when there's not one single negative to combining? If somebody has a negative, we have a discussion. If it's 4 small things that make it better, if it's 1,000 small things that make it better, what's the discussion? I'm just confused. I'm asking. There's not one negative. No one has brought it up. So if it's 100 small things, why are we discussing anything? I'm just wondering.
The negative is
Here's
the
our
wording of your charter would lead you to have to do this by way of charter amendment rather than ordinance.
Not under organizational chart the way it was presented. The fire chief answers to the mayor. Is what the charter says right now. But if you combine it with one director and you put a deputy fire chief, but you call that director the fire chief director, he answers to the mayor. No charter change.
Language in the charter is still gonna need to be changed.
Which is why we asked MTS for their opinion on it,
That's
and they've given us their opinion.
Well, I have an email from Libby, she's the manager of legal services
Libby
from
McCroskey at
Yes.
CTAS.
And it says that, we have reviewed Article 4 of the charter, and it appears that the EMS fire department could be combined without necessity of a charter amendment, but we have found no law on that issue and cannot give an opinion with certainty. A charter amendment would, of course, avoid any question in the matter. So why are we not just doing a charter amendment?
Because why should we wait for 2 years for a charter amendment to save someone's life at the time?
How many lives have been lost in Trousdale
Is
County
it
because
one
of
time?
fire?
Why are
I mean,
you against it?
Exactly, but it,
It doesn't make
I don't
Why
see,
are
can
you
you
against
tell,
putting them together?
because I don't see a problem with the way it is
I
now.
see a problem with the way that it's done right now. You don't have any fire experience whatsoever, do you? Have you ever fought a fire? You ever been in fire service?
No,
You ever been in EMS?
no.
So you have no knowledge other than what you're being told by people as to how it's done,
I've
right?
lived in Trousdale County for
Well, I understand,
31
man,
years
but
and I've
I'm
not
not
had
fussing
any
with you,
problems at
I'm
all.
just trying to understand why you don't think it's better to save people's lives quicker. if there's two people sitting in that fire hall when the call goes out and they're responding within a minute and a half, you're still gonna have all your volunteers coming. You're still gonna have them all going to the fire. So if we're getting a truck out 5 minutes quicker to respond to the call, where's the problem with that?
There,
If we're
There's
having
no-
everybody cross-trained.
there's no problem with the way it is now. Can you show me where somebody has lost their life, somebody's been hurt because a fire call didn't get responded to?
Fire response time.
Fire response time is everything.
When did, I mean, have you heard, I haven't heard of any instances in Trousdale
Do
County
we want
where
one?
fire has not got responded to.
Again,
I don't see a problem with the service we're providing now.
Okay, can I
That's-
say something?
because we don't,
This goes back to what I just said. There's not one single negative to combine, but we have these small things that can make it better. Why would you not take the small things to make it better if there's no negative? Can you answer that? I'm asking.
I don't see there's no problem with it now. I'm
But
not
you're not
seeing a
gonna make it
problem with
better.
so you think it's okay that it takes 7 minutes to get a fire engine out of the hall to go to somebody's house? You think that's okay? When you can get an engine out of the house in a minute and a half? Which means the difference in somebody maybe making it inside that house when they get there to pull you out versus 7 minutes later getting there and it's so fully involved, there's no way to get inside and pull you out.
We're just have to agree to disagree.
Well, I understand, I mean, why don't you,
Ma'am,
why
Ms. Jones.
get there quicker?
Can I answer that?
Yeah.
Alright, in 2015, only 4% of the fire responses in the nation were to actual fire calls. The rest of them were to medical and, emergency. If you ask these people who, a lot of the calls they get are medical calls or say, flooding, swift water, all that. There's a lot, the fire service is evolving, it's involving a whole lot more than it used to. It's not just going and suppressing fires. And the more they do that, the more then they need training, they need the backup of the EMS and the paramedics, and it just makes more sense.
But they're backing each other up now. I don't understand.
No, they're not. The EMS does not go fight fires.
They're on scene, no, sir.
They're not there fighting fires.
They can if they want
There's
to,
two
sir.
people standing there that if they're trained could be fighting fires instead of just standing there.
Get your information right.
They're supposed to all
Why you wouldn't wanna
be
hit
answering
somebody?
now.
They've asked to help.
I don't understand why,
Why do you,
We
why
work
would you
together,
not wanna
sir.
make it better?
I think all of them respond now.
Yeah.
Isn't that true, guys, that are back in the back? Don't
If
you
they're
guys?
paged out,
All of them are paged
if they're
out?
paged out, they do.
We're very rarely paged out to anything that
EMS.
EMS or rescue goes to.
That's
So
what
no,
we're
they don't
requesting.
page them all out together.
Yes, ma'am.
January of 2018, I had a fire on my property. I live in Cato on Scruggs Lane, single lane road almost. If there was an engine that came and then everybody came, ain't no way anybody would have gotten down that street to get to my house, I can guarantee you. I lost everything in that fire. And I mean, the police actually woke me up. It was 11:30 at night. They came up to my house. It was my camper that I let somebody stay in for a while. And it was totally engulfed by the time everybody got there, apparently. And, but if everybody, I can't imagine everybody's cars, trucks, everything, there would have been chaos on the street.
That's the nature of a response, though, I mean.
But if they're all but don't they all come out in the truck and now? They're not all driving their individual trucks to all the scenes, are they?
No, a lot of your volunteers come in their cars.
There's a lot of times a lot of the trucks are already
Yeah,
gone,
the
you
trucks.
have to come in a personal vehicle.
They have,
The trucks
Some-
go first.
some
but
trucks-
yeah.
closer
Yeah.
ones, that volunteers that are closer usually go get the truck.
I actually don't remember because I know I was pretty emotional. Losing
And that
everything,
is
but
emotional time.
Actually, if you go in your personal vehicle, you are to get out of the way. Even if you've gotta walk 2 miles down the road, you got to stay out of the way with personal vehicles. So if it was a tight squeeze, we wouldn't have been able to be there.
I think the trailers go like this. Aren't they like?
as you've worked on this, you do see the advantage of when it's put together, of the response time, the combined training, the things that can be done with a combined department.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think cross-training as many people you can to do as many different jobs is most efficient.
So why wait till the merge to do it? Why haven't y'all been working together all this time?
Well, it's asked us to go to Swiftwater, and I sent a couple of people from fire to Swiftwater, but they're separate departments, and they need to go through their command staff to do.
But y'all could still communicate, right? If it's best for us, you're sitting here
We do
fighting for
communicate.
what's best for us. Why would you not go ahead and say, y'all come on, let's train, let me get y'all here, and y'all get here.
Chain of command.
It's a chain of command. We don't have.
There was some training that was done behind the county garage that the firefighters did go and cut up cars and stuff like that. And then
We can't teach Swiftwater here. I'm sorry to interrupt you, but yeah, there's some things that we have to send people.
but there's a lot of people that don't want to learn Swiftwater too, so.
I mean, I'm not gonna make anybody do it. Yes, ma'am.
Is there, I'm a nurse, so I, of course, think of malpractice and insurance and everything like that. Is there, by combining, would there be insurance that would cover everybody for any kind of action that may be, somebody would sue you for? That right now, if somebody went from fire to do Swiftwater, they wouldn't be covered, but if they went as you all combined, they would be covered, you know what I'm saying?
I think liability lies in the level of training. So if you send somebody who's not trained to do something and there's a negative outcome, then you have a vicarious liability
The
issue.
individual workers, whether they be volunteers or paid staff, are presently covered through the county's workman's compensation insurance for any injury that they may incur themselves.
Right.
There's nothing like malpractice for the department. As long as you're not negligent in the way you treat that call, whether it's medical, fire, whatever, but you're always open to a lawsuit from anyone for any cause.
Right.
Your job would be to prove that you've done it in a responsible, you've done the call in a responsible way, and you were not negligent.
But my question is, with it, you all combined with the same training and the same leadership and everything versus being separate entities, and then say somebody from the fire department does get a page out for some reason and response, but they haven't had the training, do they have
There is a
liability
liability
that
there.
wouldn't be covered by insurance?
There's the potential legal liability for.
Fire has, we put our new volunteers through a probationary period. And during that, we would not put those individuals into a fire dangerous environment. So we're gonna protect the staff from those severe environments. We're just not gonna put them in. Does that answer your question?
I'm actually talking from a legal standpoint.
Since it's rained so
If somebody
much.
goes and their house burns to the ground, they go, oh my God, they didn't do anything, you know, they just didn't watch it, and I'm gonna sue you.
Anybody can do that at any time.
True, but I'm
so-
saying, is there more of a legal
No.
liability if everybody isn't cross-trained?
About the probationary
Okay.
period, I have a question for the chief. How do you pick the members now?
We have we invite prospects to attend several meetings, and then they are proposed for membership, and there is a vote by the membership.
So your people in your department are,
And then once that has happened, then we evaluate them for fitness.
you realize you're the only department that's doing that, right?
They're not the only department that does that. I was voted onto the rescue the same way.
You don't do it that way anymore. Well, then you're both in violation of the charter.
That's why I was voted onto rescue.
Both in violation.
They used to do it that way. It's not that way.
Yes, right, there's something.
What if you're saying have 2 people, you're gonna have full-time down there, what are those 2 people gonna do? Can they go and, are they gonna be able to go in, are they gonna be able to fight? You're still gonna have to wait for the volunteers to get there, so they're still, you can get them there, but it's not like they're gonna be able to be a 7-man team all of a sudden and do it, so it's not that big of a thing. And she said, I heard her say earlier, she's not had anybody call her. Has she called anybody? Has she talked to anybody in her district and found out if they knew anything about this? Because I'll tell you, a lot of people don't know what's going on. Not at all.
I mean, it's been advertised rather.
We've been talking about this for 4 or 5 years.
Chris over here
But it's
has
still
about
not
it, Russell.
being,
Of
it's,
course,
people
everybody
still
don't read
don't
about
know.
it anymore either.
I've been sharing it on Facebook too.
Yeah, I don't do Facebook, so.
There you go, he don't do Facebook, so.
There's a lot of information on Facebook that can be accurate too.
Over the years, when I was, everywhere I worked at, except when I worked for the city of Hartsville, I was cross-trained. I was a fireman, a police officer, and a medical person. TVA and at the airport. I got to go to a lot of training when I got the chance. But we trained within and then we trained outside, and we all, got your certificate, and we got to go to make it better. I always liked it because I wanted to get better and knowing what to do when I was inside. And I had to deal with aviation fuel. And you look at it wrong and it goes off. And it gets hot, and we wore silver suits to reflect the heat. But I always got to go up in Kentucky. I went to Texas A&M. I went everywhere all over the country to get training. Here, it will take time. As he said, well, go little bitty step, little time. A lot of these people work and they can't go for a 2-week, 3-week, 4-week class. But as time goes, you can get, some people can get a smaller school, but get that extra to go somewhere and work with other people. That's the good part. You learn from other people. I learned a lot. I was put in with people. When I got there, I was the only one in the school, so we made a team. I was with people I had no idea who they were. Didn't know if they were going to get up and run from the fire or what. But I took trust in the fact that they had some kind of training. And everything, I got lucky and everything. Nobody ever jumped up and run on me. So when the monster shot, the fire monster you look at him, you look at him, you can see him in the fire. He's there. Anybody that say ain't never seen the devil in the fire, they ain't seen one. So, but it will take time. As I said earlier, it's gonna take time to get everybody to work and get trained. It'll take time. Yes, ma'am.
Miss Jones.
Yeah.
If you don't mind me asking, which district are you in?
District 9.
District 9.
Yeah.
Is that Andrews Avenue?
It is.
So it's Richard Jones. Are you with Richard?
Yes.
Have you even seen the petition?
I have seen the petitions.
Most of the people in your district signed that petition.
I've seen the petition, but like I said,
But
no
you
one
said
has,
nobody has
no
called
one has
you.
contacted me.
How about that petition?
Yes, sir, yes.
Last meeting I asked of the names on this petition, why they were adamantly against it, and I heard crickets. I've talked to 3 volunteer firemen out in town. The last one was 3 days ago, O'Reilly. I said, what's your take on this? His comment to me was, I'd rather not say. So as a commissioner, if I don't get the negative or the whys, I get one side of the story, and that's what I gotta go with. That's what I'm getting right now. There's, I think it was 279 people on this, but nobody's come to say why they're adamantly against it.
Well, they signed the petition because they said that there was nothing wrong with the fire department
Right.
the way that it is, so why don't we just leave it the way that it is?
We
If
can
it's
make-
not
Because we
broken,
can make
leave
it better.
it.
And the people that I have talked
Let's make
to
it better.
are for it. And I wanna say, and the people that I've asked about it, the people that are, I will say, maybe other people in government or something that I've talked to, or other people that I've talked to about it, or other people that have given me any type of negative, it's always, it goes a long way back. There's, people don't like this person, people don't like this person. It's
things were said, things were done,
But
this
we're
goes
not-
years back. And, you know, we've gotta take the personalities and the egos out of it. It's not about individuals, it's about what is gonna make the county better.
We're not talking about who's saying or she's
I-
saying, we're talking
well,
about the people
that's
in
not-
your
that was-
district.
That's what I have heard.
We're talking about the people in your district that signed a petition
And,
stating that they wanted it left alone.
but,
Why
but,
don't you call them?
Hmm?
Why don't you call a couple of them and ask them yourself? Why
Well,
don't you do your due diligence
She's in
as a
your
commissioner?
district.
I have done my due diligence, thank you very much,
Okay.
and everyone that I have asked has,
Has been government officials, right now.
Have
No,
you talked
that
to
is not
her?
correct.
Have you
No.
talked to her?
No, that
She's
is
in your
not
district.
Huh?
I'm
Have you
just
talked to
asking.
her? She's in your district.
Have you talked, I'm talking to you now.
I listen to the scanner and I see maybe a minute difference in someone living at a facility with their vehicle
A minute can make a
outside.
difference between if you,
How many deaths have we had in
if you got having cardiac arrest from smoke inhalation, you can have 3 minutes, you can,
How many minutes did it take them to get to the choking call Saturday or Sunday? What day was it?
I don't know.
Exactly.
Before you got here.
But I'm not on the
I've been
scanner.
listening
Meeting
to
here
it.
tonight.
But I'm
we
not
went
on the
over
scanner.
response time.
Right,
that
I've
it's
been
taken.
listening, that's why I'm here.
Dispatch.
Because I don't
Listen,
feel
I'm not
that
here to
it's-
argue and
I'm
talk.
not arguing, I'm just telling you my side. So if you're taking it as arguing, then we can talk later. I'm not trying to argue, I'm just letting you know what I, as a citizen in your district, feels and sees.
You
So-
feel like,
So you don't feel like you need to make your department any better? It could just be
I
like
believe
it is.
training, I believe working together, I believe everything is better, but I don't think that you should say or feel that they're inadequate, because that's truly
one's saying
what
they're
we're
inadequate.
Nobody said that.
That's my opinion of what I'm hearing. I'm not saying that you said it, so
no one
I
has
did not
said that.
say you said it. I
Mr.
said
Buckmeyer.
that's it.
That's the furthest thing from the truth.
Mr. Buckmeyer.
Mr. Chair, I'm gonna do something tonight I said I wasn't gonna do, but the question keeps coming up, so I'm gonna give an answer. I don't wanna be an MR,
What's an MR?
a medical responder, an emergency medical responder. I don't wanna do medical calls. There's folks here that do wanna do medical calls, more than welcome to do it. You say you're gonna make the community better, you very well may. To say that that engine's not gonna get en route faster with somebody stationed at that fire hall would be silly. I am not opposed to this whatsoever, given the correct logistics, the roles, the responsibilities laid out, as I told Mr. Gregory last time. I've been accused of being the spearhead of the resistance of this, and I'm not at all. But what I am gonna tell you is if you think that you're gonna guarantee an improvement to the service of the county, what would you do if I said EMS and fire responded to a fire call on White Bluff Lane and the ambulance ended up in Smith County? Now, what if the engine had ended up in Smith County? These are concerns of mine that we need to work on it. I don't know why we can't all get together and work on it. Why do we have to have a committee to tell us to do it? We should be able to do that. I wanna know why we go to a motor vehicle accident with 2 patients pinned in a car and an EMT and a paramedic never get out of the ambulance. And the response I got when asked was, no point in putting their lives in danger. Fighting the fire is pretty dangerous, right? These are logistics. These are things that we need to work out. And I said I wasn't gonna name names, I wasn't gonna call people out. What if I said there was a patient pinned in a car on 231 for 58 minutes? During that same call, another man was extricated from another vehicle, strapped to a backboard, sitting in the middle of 231. About 10 minutes later, I happened to look up in the fire hose and the man still strapped to the backboard, laying in the middle of the road, all by himself. No paramedic, no EMT. Nobody. These are logistics, these are roles, these are responsibilities, these are things we need to work on. They provide a great service. Now, Mr. Beatty's sitting up here and he knows what I'm talking about. Now, he can disagree with it if he wants to.
I honestly wasn't there.
You wasn't there for which one?
I don't know, either one of them apparently.
Alright, well, there were several people there. These are the facts though.
What would you want our people to do if somebody's been in, get in the car with them?
We've always had EMTs and paramedics do patient care. You had a volunteer doing patient care.
Why are you doing extrication?
we've always had paramedics and EMTs do patient. Are you saying no other county let their EMTs and paramedics do patient care
No, I'm
during
asking,
extrication? I would have, yes, liked for them to do some type of patient care.
well, I mean, there's not a lot.
I mean, if nothing else, help us carry the guy up the hill since we were this deep in water. But now, we came to help, and which is why I didn't wanna talk about this.
Which one was it? I was not there.
Huh?
Which one was that?
The one under Domino's.
Domino's?
You
Oh,
were there.
on the corner?
Yeah, you were there. And I didn't wanna say anything about this, cause I don't wanna call these other services out.
We
They're,
were back inside the car the whole time with me.
oh, no.
Yeah.
But,
I was
anyway,
inside the van the entire time.
Raymond Baxter was inside the van, I
With
put him
me.
in it. So, anyway,
So, yeah, there was patient care.
we carried the patients to the ambulance, boots full of water, everything. No, I'm here to help you. I really am.
I don't understand what your issue is, if I was in the vehicle with them all the time.
The patient in the vehicle for 58 minutes?
The one that was in the hole there in front of the,
No, there was a patient in the vehicle for 58 minutes on Highway 231. I was unhosed. I helped get the other patient out of the other car, left him with an EMT, and then I turned around looking, there was nobody with a mirror strapped in the middle of the road on 231.
I just don't recall that one.
You weren't there for that. But at 58 minutes, you're gonna remember that's when I threw the fit and said, boys, we gotta get him out. And then
I wasn't there, I don't remember.
you had to hear the fussing.
Mr. Buckmaster,
Sorry.
let's stay away from this, or
Yes,
I
sir.
can stand up and talk about all the deficiencies in the fire hall.
Absolutely.
That's, no, I'm not going to.
These are my concerns, is what I'm telling you. These are my concerns about my safety. I feel safe right now. I feel I do a sufficient job. I feel that combining these in the right circumstances would be beneficial. What I'm not seeing is the circumstances laid out. It's all still so wide open, we don't know what's gonna happen, and I'm scared.
It's completely defined, what are the rights?
Well, hold on, me and Mr. Buckmaster talking, I'm sorry.
Apologize.
So, what I'm asking you
Yes,
is stay away from belittling
Yes, sir.
departments,
And
because that's completely negative and unnecessary.
what I'm telling you is, those are my concerns and why I'm scared. Because they kept asking about concerns. I'm scared of it.
So, you were on scene for 58 minutes.
Yes, sir.
In a car wreck, and someone was inside of it.
Yes, sir.
Why did you not cut them out?
You had a whole extrication team sitting there looking at it with their command, and they
What
were
if
in
we weren't
command.
combined?
Say again?
What if we were combined? Who would have had a tool?
Couldn't tell you.
You wouldn't have taken the tool and got the patient out before.
If my
58
command
minutes?
told me to, yes, sir.
There you
I
go.
was manning the fire hose.
There you go. You could have been command of that wreck.
Could have been.
Could have been, and could have had them out quicker. So there you go. That's another reason to combine.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Again, just being a layperson here, but as a commissioner and a citizen, so we got somebody in the vehicle for 58 minutes, not good. Why didn't that go to the fire chief, and the fire chief, by charter right now, go to the mayor, and we need to correct this problem, there's a problem there. If you consolidated, you'd have one command with a deputy chief. I mean, to me, you could have a little easier flow of chain of command. And again, you've been on a lot of these things, you and I have talked quite a bit. If problems like that's going on, I mean, that needs to go up the flagpole, the chain of command, and somebody needs to be held accountable.
It was addressed. I was called to the office, and it actually was agreed upon by the deputy director that I did the right thing. The lady that was pinned was not dying; she was not suffering, but she was there.
58 minutes is a long time.
And it, you know, even the police were like, "Are you going to do anything?"
Right.
And it finally got to the point where I had to do something, and I did it rudely.
But, I mean,
and I apologize for it, but it was addressed. It was addressed.
I guess what I'm looking at too is you got the fire, you got EMS, you got two separate entities right now staring at each other going, who's gonna do what? But if we consolidate on one command, you're on the same page, you're on the same team, hopefully things like that won't happen. They still might.
Yeah.
If you've been in business long enough, you know they still might.
Well, I'm worried about command.
Okay.
You have one in command, but you have 3 divisions with 3 specific jobs. If I read it correctly,
Right.
EMS, EMA, and fire are the 3 divisions.
So one of the concerned questions would be, on a scene like that, with the 3 separate or three, you know, everybody's combined, say for example, just get your three, your EMS, just say two, EMS and fire.
Yeah.
Who's gonna take command, who has priority?
And I'm saying it would be our structure would be EMS if they're gonna take the engine first to be there first.
Right.
Our first on scene is command. They can transfer command if they want to.
Which has to be something to be worked out.
Transfer to somebody else, and that falls under the incident command structure, it's routine.
Everybody in here has the ICS classes, they should know how that works.
Yeah, that's relatively simple. My point was, I'm scared,
Scared of what?
getting killed.
Okay, so by combining the departments, having more training than you have now, and everybody training together, somehow that scares you more?
What kind of training, for what roles?
Firefighting, extrication, medical.
I don't wanna do
I
medical.
don't care if you wanna do medical or not.
That's where I was
You don't
going.
have to, you don't
That's
have
where I
to.
was going with it.
Going with it.
You don't have
That's
to
what
be
I wanted to
Y'all
hear.
don't
Thank you,
care.
sir.
Did he not just say that?
He just said, he was saying you don't have to do it.
Did he not say a minute ago that if you particularly in your own position don't wanna be medical calls, then you don't have to go, right? Again, why are we not combining them, Buckmaster?
Because I'm scared. I don't care whether you do or not. I am afraid of who's going to tell me to do what and get me hurt.
You may be in a position of command, you may be telling people what to do,
Honestly,
just depends on who's on scene.
Do you have job descriptions?
That's
Who's
it.
gonna be in charge of what? And my question is, if you're combining, why don't you take the fire chief and why can't y'all sit at the table and say, look, we wanna do what's best, this is what we need to do? Why are we a committee trying to, I don't know anything about fire, I don't know anything about EMS, so why am I will vote what my people want me to vote, but it looks like the people that have the more knowledge of it would do a better job of combining it than us on the outside that have no idea. And I don't understand, if you've been trying to do it for so long, why is
Because
Why
you
is it
have
taking
to
it
try
so
to
long?
fight it for so long. The fire department wants to be their own little group of people with nobody else involved in them. That's why.
And that's not true.
That's not true,
That's
sir.
not true.
We invite EMS, we invite rescue just as well. They invite us. We're called, we go. If we call them, they come to us. We work together, sir, so don't stop the lives.
Just one of the questions I had, job description, qualification, all these positions, we haven't discussed it, hasn't been there yet, so I asked what the current job description are, as things are now, and I basically got there's very few of them, am I still correct in that? As far as job description for all the positions, and what qualifications
We have
are?
job descriptions for hours.
So, I mean, that's one of my main questions there too, what are the current qualifications for each position, and what are the job descriptions, and what do personnel have that are in the positions, are they qualified, and what would they be if we combine? That's one of my
I believe
questions.
The mayor on the last meeting said that he was working on
Right.
those qualifications for.
Well, Mr. Jekyll of MPAS said he thought that he had those qualifications, they may have to be tweaked a little bit, but as of yet, I haven't gotten anything.
Yeah, we'll call him and see if I can get them to him.
Am I
I hate to break up such a happy little occasion here, but we have another meeting at 7 o'clock, and I will remind everyone, this passed out of this committee, it's at the county commission, this ought to be discussed at the work session and county commission meeting. All right, can we all agree with that? There's nothing to vote on right now, it's not in front of you, it's actually at the county commission.
One of the things I wanna say before we get finished here is, we've worked on this for 4 or 5 years, and we have come to the conclusion that it would benefit us more to put them together. But when we started this 4 or 5 years ago, it was just more of a challenge to see where were we and what did we have. The more we investigate, the more people we've had come up here, the more the conclusion seems to be, you'd be better off to do it this way. People from the state fire department. We've gone through a gauntlet of things, so this last 4 or 5 years that we've been on committees, and I talked with a former commissioner recently that it's not on the commission anymore. Yeah, we've worked on this thing for a long time, so when we first started working on it, it was just the question was, where are we right now and where can we go? And it's actually started out in local government and a 5-year plan as to how would we look in 5 years in certain emergency services areas. That's where this kind of started.
It was being discussed 16 years ago, or 16 and a half years now. but it always get stopped or whatever, just never got no farther. For whatever reason, somebody either stopped it or just it didn't move along. But if we talk about it, start trying to work with it, and it just doesn't die. So, but it's been talked about a whole lot over the years. Yes, ma'am.
And just so that everybody knows, the fire department, a lot of them are cross-trained with rescue. And there is a lot of firefighters on here and firewomen, including me, that would love to do more cross-training with rescue. I would love to gear up and cut cars. I have a blast doing it.
Who's the young lady that's joined the fire department?
She's not here.
She's not here. What's her name?
Christian Gregory.
Her and I are there and are here more than she is, so.
She has a job that's keeping her, she can't leave her job to come in.
I just wondered.
I have one more question.
I knew we had one, I just had never met her.
If some of the apparatus you were talking about earlier, personal vehicles being on scene, isn't that gonna slow down your firefighters? If some of your emergency vehicles are gone, then they have to drive their personal vehicles there? Is there gonna be any kind of reimbursement for that? Are they gonna have to walk 2 miles to get to the scene to help if they have to bring their personal vehicles
I'll
there?
tell you a situation. Had the jet crash in Nashville back 20 years ago now. We sent a fire truck because we got phone. We had a 3,000 gallon truck. It sent an officer in front of it. He had to push cars out of the way with that big truck to get up there to it. Where people just stopped and left them in the car, in the lane, in the road, and got out. But that big truck pushed them out of the way. There were a lot of dented fingers, a lot of people were mad. But he got up there, hit the phone, fire was out, matter of just 15 minutes.
I'm talking about personal vehicles.
Yeah, but didn't matter. He was pushing whatever was in the way. Didn't care. People leave, will have an idiots are out there, they will stop and leave them, get out of them, but they will push them out of the way.
If I understand your question, right now, that's not gonna change. They're still gonna take the personal vehicles where we stay where we are, consolidate, right?
But
I mean,
it's gonna be a bigger number when this goes through.
Should be the same. Should be the same.
Should be the same, yes, ma'am.
Hey, can I ask you a question? You said you were wanting to do more, like cutting out of vehicles and stuff like that. So you would be for the merger then?
I would be.
You could do more of that type of service.
Except for the medical part of it. Now, I have rode, and don't get me wrong, I rode for a few years with the older crew of the medical on the ambulance. They were wonderful people, and I worked with them closely. And if it was that same crew of people again, oh yes, by all means, I would ride that ambulance with them for anything possible that I could do for them. My interest is more in the rescue part, not the medical, and I'm sure that goes along with a lot. Not everybody is meant to do medical.
Right,
They're
right.
not.
Right. But the rescue part, you would be all for.
Yes, I would love for the fire department and the rescue squad, them to combine together and let
one more thing
EMS
here.
have,
Go ahead.
I think at this point, when we were talking tonight about open discussion and questions we've had, there'll be questions that we'll always have, because you can't guarantee everything all at one time. But one thing we can do is we can try to move this forward, this committee here. And if we've heard option one and option two could come at a later time in budget and finance, I'd like to make a motion that this committee recommend to the governing body that we go with option one to start with.
Any further discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed?
That's just to narrow down the option.
It is.
Because, again, the way the resolution was, or whether it's at the county court was, two options there. We just streamlined it a little more.
You make a motion to adjourn?
Make motion adjourned.
Yes, sir. Yes,
I
ma'am.
need to
I'm sorry.
update the committee on two
Oh.
issues.
All right.
And Mr. Beatty can help fill in the gaps if I say something wrong.
Sure.
Please. We had two incidents recently, obviously with the flooding. We had some incidents there. Mr. Beatty and he contacted me, asked about opening up the emergency shelter. He felt that the high school would be a better option than the emergency shelter, given that it's in a floodplain. We did move some cots and everything over, ready to put them in the high school, and that exposed one issue we need to deal with. We have no one to staff emergency shelters. So I did have some people that are volunteers and help out with the homeless when it gets cold. They were willing to staff it, however, that's only a few people, and I was worried about them getting burned out, and I'd like to have enough to do shifts. Mr. Beatty did contact Red Cross, however, they were dealing with Nashville and Gallatin and Sumner County and all this. I think we need to assume that's always going to be the case, and we need to be prepared on that front, and so that's something he and I are going to work on it. I did contact some other people that will be looking into getting into that and maybe doing volunteers, so that's an issue I wanted to bring before the Emergency Service Committee and let them know this is an issue that's come up. Everything else, as my understanding, went very well during the floods, and there's no issues there as far as activating personnel, so everything went good there.
Is this something that if we were to push like something out on Facebook to ask for volunteers, would they need like some type of background check or something to be?
Well, I contacted Department of Health, came by a few days later on another issue, and I told them what happened to us, and they said that might be something they would be able to help with through the Tennessee Department of Health, and so that's something. They gave me a contact, but I've been in meetings and going to conferences and everything almost consistently by then. I should have sent that to you, and I'll send it to you. You can contact her directly, and then hopefully we'll start making some movement on that front so we're better prepared next time. Yes, ma'am.
Just send me some information on that, please.
Yes, ma'am, I will. We'll get more.
Me too.
You too? All right, I'll probably put that out then on Facebook and get some names, and then whatever more better organizational structure we have, just kind of transfer those names over.
How many percentage of the shelter, the high school shelter?
I don't think any did at that time.
No one did.
Now, luckily, the flooding wasn't near as bad in Trousdale County as it was in some other counties, so we didn't have anybody needing to take use of it. And I'll go back to a previous issue. When the power went out for 30 minutes here in town, that exposed a glaring issue. The phone system and internet system is run out of one room at the administrative building. The generator did not kick on, and so the phone service and the internet service for the entire county, save the sheriff's department, which is on their own AT&T line because they're required to be, went down, so the sheriff's department could not contact the EMA service. We did look at that under the suggestion of Chief Cawthorn. We did look into just pricing, just generally a battery backup system for the phone system and the internet service, and Tri-County came back with a price tag of a little over $21,000.
So just for the battery, or?
Just for a battery backup for 2 hours. You had to have 4 of these battery things. The generator did not kick in because whoever serviced it last time left it in the manual mode. And so it did not automatically kick on. Mr. Slee would like to test it, however, he has to coordinate with Tri-County Electric and have them kill the power at the pole and make sure everything inside is shut down properly before we do that, and then see if the generator's gonna kick on. So that's something he's gonna try to coordinate down the road. And so that's something I want to bring to the committee, let them know, even though it falls under the $25,000 requirement for the competitive bid, it's over the $10,000 that the mayor can authorize. And me personally, I'd like to bid it out anyway, since we know it's going to be so expensive. I would like to get some prices and some options on that, because nobody expected it to be $21,000.
Yeah, definitely. But if the generator works, do we really need battery backup?
Chief Cawthorn said we are required by state law to have at least 1 hour battery backup. Right now we have 0.
Gotcha. That's a new point then.
Right, and he brought that to our attention, and so we said, well, we would like to go beyond the 1 hour, because let's say we do have an issue with the generator and it was in the automatic mode and didn't come on. We've got to get somebody here to work on it, and just about anybody that's going to come and work on it is at least an hour away.
Do you need motion or anything?
No, I just wanted to inform the committee of what's going on there, and that way, so if it comes up, somebody asks you about it, you have been informed.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Motion adjourned.
All in favor, say aye. Very good. Thank y'all for everybody. Thank you for putting in your 2 cents. Thank you.